maintenance deck of the Accord heavy cruiser Ethelgard smelled of ozone recycled air and the of anxiety. Rowan Hale wiped his grease-stained palms on his standard-issue gray jumpsuit, trying to ignore the way the floor plates vibrated beneath his boots. The vibrations were not the comforting rhythmic thrum of the sublight engines. They were erratic, spasmodic shudders, as if the ship itself were suffering from a fever. Rowan adjusted the strap of his tool bag and stared up at the slipweave teleporter Node 7. It was a massive, arching construct of dark chrome and exposed cabling pulsing, with a sickly violet light that seemed to dim and flare in time with the deck's vibrations. "All right, you temperamental piece of junk," Rowan muttered, stepping onto the containment platform. "Let us get this over with before the shift commander realizes I am not just running a diagnostic." He was not supposed to be here alone. Protocol demanded a team of 3 for any core stabilization, but Rowan needed the solitude. He needed the silence to focus on the ghost in the machine, the anomaly he had tracked through 3,000 lines of code. He pulled a heavy stabilizer core from his bag. It was a cylinder of dense alloy, humming with potential energy. His hands shook slightly. It was not just the caffeine from the 3 cups of stimulants he had downed in the mess hall. It was the weight of the lie he was living. On paper, Rowan Hale was a rookie technician, barely qualified to hold a hydrospanner. In reality, he was a man hunting for a ghost, looking for the brother who had vanished into a misjump 6 months ago, a misjump the Accord claimed never happened. "Stabilizer insertion in 321, Rowan whispered. He slotted the cylinder into the maintenance port. The machine did not purr. It screamed. The sound was not auditory. It was a psychic shriek that tore through the base of his skull. The violet light flared into a blinding white supernova. The gravity plating beneath his feet gave way, replaced by the sickening sensation of free fall. Rowan did not have time to scream. The universe folded in on itself, compressing his body into a single point of agonizing data, then violently expanded. Cold, then heat, then the hard impact of a floor that was definitely not the maintenance deck. Rowan gasped, his lungs fighting to inflate against a sudden change in air pressure. He scrambled to his hands and knees, his vision swimming with afterimages of purple static. The smell of ozone was gone, replaced by something richer, darker, sandalwood-polished steel, and a musk that triggered a primal alarm in his hindbrain. He blinked, clearing the tears from his eyes. He was not in engineering. The room was vast, bathed in the low, ambient hum of high-tier shielding. The walls were not the scuffed gray of the crew quarters, but paneled in a material that absorbed the light, a velvet black composite that made the room feel infinite. A wide viewport dominated the far wall, looking out into the streaks of slip space, but the shutters were currently drawn, leaving the room in a heavy shadow. And then the alarm triggered. It was not the general quarters klaxon. It was a sharp, piercing chime, a localized intrusion alert. Red emergency lights flooded the velvet darkness, turning the room into a blood-colored chamber. "Oh no," Rowan breathed. "No, no, no." He scrambled to stand his boots, slipping on the polished floor. In his right hand, he still clutched his sonic screwdriver like a lifeline. He spun around looking for an exit and froze. In the center of the room lay a sleeping platform, massive and raised like a sacrificial altar. And rising from it was a nightmare. Admiral Celine Rauch did not wake up like a human. There was no grogginess, no moment of confusion. 1 second she was a silhouette beneath thermal sheets. The next, she was a vertical line of tension and violence. She wore a simple sleeping garment of gray silk that did nothing to hide the corded muscle of her shoulders or the deadly grace of her stance. She was Lupinar. Even in the dim red light, the heritage was unmistakable. Her ears, slightly pointed and tufted with silver fur, swiveled toward him. Her eyes were not human eyes. They were pools of molten gold glowing with a bioluminescent intensity that cut through the shadows. Her canines, bared in a silent snarl, were sharp enough to tear a throat out. She looked at him. She looked at the sonic screwdriver trembling in his hand. Rowan felt his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He was a dead man. He had just teleported into the private quarters of the most feared admiral in the Accord fleet, a woman known for spacing pirates without a suit. The admiral's posture shifted. The tension remained, but the immediate threat of violence transformed into something more calculated. She tilted her head, her golden eyes narrowing. "Lost, rookie." The voice was low, a granular purr that vibrated in Rowan's chest. It was mocking, dangerous, and terrifyingly calm. Rowan opened his mouth, but his vocal cords were paralyzed. He took a step back, and his boot crunched on something hard. He looked down. Lying on the pristine floor right next to where he had landed was a jagged piece of metal. It was smoking slightly. It must have been pulled through the slipstream with him debris from the misjump. Rowan stared at it. It was a badge. A civilian identification badge. The plastic was melted, the edges scorched black, but the holographic logo was still visible, flickering weakly in the red light. Sanctuary Colony 4. The blood drained from Rowan's face. Sanctuary 4 was a civilian shelter. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be thousands of light years away from their current trajectory. Click. The sound of the door locking was louder than a gunshot. Heavy blast shields slid over the entrance, sealing them in. "System lockdown," a computerized voice announced, cool and detached. "Assassin protocol initiated. Containment active." "Assassin!" Rowan squeaked. He looked back up at Celine. "Wait. No. I swear, Admiral, I am just here to fix the machine." Celine stepped off the platform. She moved with a fluid silence that was unnatural for someone of her size. She was tall, towering over Rowan by at least 6 inches. She stalked toward him barefoot, the red emergency lights casting long dancing shadows that made her look like a demon rising from the pit. "You have a weapon," Celine said, nodding at the screwdriver. Rowan looked at the tool in his hand and frantically shoved it behind his back. "It is a screwdriver, a sonic screwdriver for screwing things sonically. You bypassed 3 levels of biometric security," she continued, closing the distance. "You overrode the spatial dampeners. You materialized inside a shielded command deck." "I did not do it on purpose." Rowan backed up until his shoulder blades hit the cold metal of the wall. He was cornered. The slipweave coughed. It hiccuped. "I was just trying to stabilize the core and it spat me out here. I swear I am not trying to kill you. I am just a technician. I fix things. I do not fix people's lives. Especially not Admiral's lives." He winced. "Stupid." "Shut up, Rowan." Celine stopped less than a foot away from him. The heat radiating from her body was palpable. She smelled of rain and hot iron. She raised a hand and Rowan flinched, expecting a blow. Instead, she slammed her hand against the wall beside his head. The metal groaned under the impact. Rowan stopped breathing. "Do not insult me with lies, human," she growled, her face inches from his. "I can hear your heart. It is beating 140 times a minute. That is fear." She leaned in closer. Her nose wrinkled slightly, inhaling deeply. This was the part of the orientation vid that everyone skipped, the part about lupinar biology. They were apex predators. They did not just see you. They smelled your chemistry. They could scent cortisol, adrenaline, pheromones. To a lupinar, an emotion was as loud as a shout. Rowan tried to control his panic, but it was like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a spoon. He was terrified, yes, but beneath the terror was the guilt. The secret he was keeping. The brother he was looking for. If she smelled the deception, he was finished. "You smell like grease," Celine murmured, her voice losing some of its edge, replaced by a flicker of confusion. "Grease and cheap caffeine." She pulled back slightly, her golden eyes searching his face. And terror. Pure, unadulterated terror. "I am in the bedroom of a wolf, Admiral," Rowan managed to choke out. Terror seems like the appropriate response. Celine stared at him for a beat longer. Then her lip curled, not in a snarl this time, but in something that might have been a smirk. Or a grimace. It was hard to tell. "If you were an assassin, you would have triggered a micro-explosive by now," she said, lowering her arm. "And you would not have brought—" She glanced down at the scorched badge on the floor. "Trash with you." Before Rowan could answer, his comlink crackled to life, shattering the tension. "Hail, hail, you incompetent circuit friar!" It was Juno Kess, the chief engineer. Her voice was so loud it distorted the tiny speaker in Rowan's ear. "If you are dead, Hale, I swear to the stars, I will not write you a eulogy," Juno screamed. "I will write an invoice. Do you have any idea what you just did to my grid? The energy spike looked like a supernova inside a bottle." "Where are you?" Rowan swallowed hard, his eyes never leaving Celine's. I am with the Admiral, Chief." There was a profound silence on the other end of the line. "The Admiral," Juno's voice dropped an octave. "Admiral Rauch, yes." "Oh," Juno said. "Well, it was nice knowing you, kid. Try not to bleed on the carpet. That velvet is expensive." The blast doors hissed. Celine spun around as the heavy metal panels retracted. A squad of 6 security officers stormed in, pulse rifles raised and charged. They were dressed in full tactical armor, their faces obscured by helmets. "Secure the room!" the lead officer shouted. "Target acquired." 6 laser sights painted red dots on Rowan's chest. Rowan raised his hand slowly, the screwdriver dangling from his fingertips. "Please do not shoot. I am allergic to plasma." "Stand down." Celine's voice cracked through the room like a whip. The security team hesitated. "Admiral," the lead officer said, his weapon still trained on Rowan. "Intruder detected. Protocol dictates immediate neutralization." "I said stand down, Lieutenant," Celine said. She did not raise her voice, but the authority in it was absolute. She stepped between Rowan and the rifle, shielding him with her own body. "This is not an assassination attempt. It is a technical malfunction." Rowan blinked, staring at her back. She was protecting him. Celine turned her head slightly, shooting a glance over her shoulder at him. "Though if he calls me the Wolf Admiral again, I might execute him myself." She turned back to the guards. "Take him to the brig. Level 2 containment. I want him isolated. No one speaks to him. No one interrogates him until I arrive. Is that clear?" "Yes, Admiral," the lieutenant barked. He lowered his rifle and gestured to his men. 2 guards moved forward, grabbing Rowan by the arms and hauling him away from the wall. As they dragged him toward the door, Rowan looked back. Celine was kneeling on the floor. She picked up the scorched civilian badge with a tenderness that seemed at odds with her lethal nature. She turned it over in her hands, her golden eyes darkening. The guards shoved Rowan into the corridor. The air here was cooler, sterile. They marched him down the long hallway, their boots clanking in unison. "Hey," Rowan said to the guard on his left. "You guys can loosen the grip a little. I am not going to teleport away. I think I used up my quota for the year." The guard did not respond. They passed a polished, reflective panel on the wall. Rowan glanced at it, catching his own reflection, disheveled hair, pale face, wide eyes. And then he stumbled. In the reflection, his image did not stumble. The Rowan in the mirror kept walking for a split second, a perfect calm stride, before flickering and snapping back into sync with his real body. Rowan's breath hitched. He shook his head, blinking rapidly. "Did you see that, quiet prisoner?" the guard snapped. "No, the mirror, my reflection lagged. It was late." The guards ignored him, marching him around a corner. But the cold feeling in Rowan's gut had returned, and it had nothing to do with Selena Rauch. An echo. Dr. Amara Finch had warned them about this during the briefing on the slipweave anomalies. When space folds incorrectly, she had said, her voice distinct in his memory, time does not always catch up immediately. We call them echoes, temporal afterimages. If you see one, it means your molecular cohesion is debating with the universe about where you actually exist. They reached the turbolift. The doors slid open and standing inside was a woman who made the armed guards stiffen in fear. Octavia Sable. She was the head of internal security, a human woman with features so sharp they looked synthetic. Her uniform was black, immaculate, and devoid of a single crease. Her hair was pulled back into a severe bun, and her eyes were the color of ice. "Well, well," Octavia said, her voice smooth as silk, but cold as the void. She stepped out of the lift, blocking their path. "If it is not the man of the hour, Rowan Hale, Tech ID 4922. The guards snapped to attention. "Ma'am, taking the prisoner to the brig per Admiral Rauch's orders." Octavia smiled. It was a terrifying expression, because it did not reach her eyes. "Change of plans, Lieutenant. I will take custody of Mr. Hale. This is clearly a breach of internal security which falls under my jurisdiction." "With respect, ma'am," the lieutenant said, sounding nervous. Admiral Rauch was specific. Level 2 containment. Her authority. "The Admiral is compromised," Octavia said, lightly examining her fingernails. "She was the target of an attack. She is emotional. Lupinar often are, aren't they? All that instinct overriding logic." She stepped closer to Rowan. She did not smell like rain or ozone. She smelled of nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was unnatural. "I can take him off your hands," Octavia whispered to the guards. "I have a lovely interrogation room prepared. Soundproof. Easy to clean." "No!" a voice boomed from down the hall. Selena Rauch strode toward them. She had thrown a military greatcoat over her silk sleepwear, buttoned rapidly, but her feet were still bare. She moved with a speed that made the humans look like they were moving underwater. "He stays with me," Celine said, stopping between Octavia and Rowan. "Admiral," Octavia greeted her, her smile widening. "You should be resting, after such a fright." "I do not get frightened, Octavia. I get angry." Celine crossed her arms. "This man is a witness to a slipweave malfunction. That makes him an engineering asset, not a security prisoner. He remains under my command." "He materialized in your quarters with a weapon," Octavia countered, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "That makes him an assassin until proven otherwise, and I am the one who proves otherwise." "He had a screwdriver," Celine said flatly. "Unless he planned to assemble some furniture at me aggressively. He is not a threat." Octavia's eyes flicked to Rowan, then back to Celine. "You are protecting him. Why do you know him, Celine?" "I know you," Celine replied. "And I know that if he goes into your custody, the only thing that will come out is a confession signed in blood, regardless of the truth." The two women stared at each other. It was a clash of titans, the wolf and the snake. The air around them seemed to crackle. "Fine," Octavia said, finally stepping back. "Keep your pet. But know this, Admiral, if he is a spy and you are harboring him, the Council will not strip you of your rank. They will strip you of your fur." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking rhythmically on the deck plates. Celine watched her go until she disappeared around the bend. Then she turned to the guards. "Leave us," she ordered. "Admiral, regulations state, leave us." A low growl underscored the command. The guards looked at each other, then hastily retreated back down the hall, leaving Rowan and Celine alone by the turbolift. Rowan slumped against the wall, exhaling a breath he felt he had been holding for 10 minutes. "She is pleasant. Is she always that pleasant? Because I think my blood just froze." Celine ignored the sarcasm. She stepped close to him again, her golden eyes boring into his. She held up the scorched badge she had retrieved from her room. "Sanctuary Colony 4, she said quietly. This fell with you. Rowan stared at the badge. I do not know where it came from. Do not lie to me, Hale, she hissed. Slipweave does not just create matter, it transports it. For this to arrive with you, the teleporter had to pull from two coordinates at once, your location and the location of this badge. She pressed the scorched metal into his hand. It was still warm. Sanctuary 4 is a protected zone, she continued. If there is debris, if there is fire, it means the peace treaty is already broken. It means someone is hunting civilians. She leaned in her voice, dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Octavia wants you, because she wants to bury this. She wants to control the narrative. If I give you to her, you disappear, and this badge disappears. Rowan looked at the badge, then up at the alien woman who terrified him. Why are you telling me this? Because, Celine said, and for the first time her expression looked tired. I cannot fix a machine. I can fight, I can command, I can kill, but I cannot trace a digital ghost. She grabbed the collar of his jumpsuit and pulled him slightly closer. I am making you an offer, rookie, a deal. I will keep you out of Octavia's interrogation chair. I will wipe the log of your little visit to my quarters, so you do not get court-martialed for incompetence. And in exchange, Rowan asked, his heart thumping. In exchange, Celine said, her teeth glinting in the harsh hallway light. You become my eyes in the machine. You find out why the slipweave is spitting out dead men's belongings. You find out who is breaking the treaty. Rowan looked at the scorched badge in his hand. He thought of his brother. He thought of the reflection that had moved too late. He realized that he had just stumbled into something far bigger than a missing person case. And if I refuse? Rowan asked weakly. Celine smirked, the predatory glint returning to her eyes. Then I hand you to Octavia, and I tell her you tried to sonically screw me. Rowan swallowed. Okay, deal. Definitely deal. Good, Celine said, releasing his collar. She smoothed the front of her greatcoat. Go to the infirmary. Have Dr. Finch scan you for temporal radiation. If you are seeing echoes, you are leaking time. Fix yourself. Then meet me on the bridge at 0600 hours. She turned to leave, then paused. And Hale. Yes, Admiral. She did not look back. Next time you drop into a lady's bedroom, try to bring flowers instead of a wrench. It is polite. Rowan watched her walk away, the long coat billowing behind her like a shadow. He looked down at the badge, clenching his fist around it, until the jagged edges dug into his palm. The vibration in the floor was still there, subtle but constant. The ship was sick, and now he was the only doctor authorized to operate. Rowan pushed himself off the wall and headed toward the medical bay. As he walked, he kept his eyes strictly forward, refusing to look at any more mirrors. He did not want to know if his reflection was following him, or if it was staying behind to watch him go. The bio-tracker clamped around Rowan Hale's ankle with a finality that felt less like a security measure, and more like a predator's teeth sinking into bone. It was a sleek band of matte black polymer, heavy enough to be a constant reminder of his status, but light enough not to impede his running speed, should running become necessary. It monitors heart rate, adrenal output, and location down to the millimeter, the security officer said, holstering his sealing tool. He did not look Rowan in the eye. If you leave the designated zones, it delivers a paralytic shock. If you try to remove it, it delivers a lethal one. Rowan lifted his leg, inspecting the device. So it is jewelry with a bad attitude. Understood. Admiral Celine Rauch was leaning against the bulkhead near the brig's exit. She had traded her silk sleepwear for her full-duty uniform, a high-collared coat of midnight blue with silver braiding that accentuated the width of her shoulders. Her golden eyes tracked the installation of the anklet with a detachment that made Rowan's skin prickle. It is not jewelry, rookie. Celine said, her voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the deck plates. "It is a leash. Do not make me yank it." "I have no intention of straying, Admiral," Rowan said, testing his weight on the leg. "I am just thrilled to be out of the cell. The decor was a little too minimalist for my taste." Celine pushed off the wall and gestured for him to follow. "Walk. We are going to engineering. And try to keep your scent under control. You smell like anxiety and stale sweat." "I will try to sweat more confident cologne next time," Rowan muttered, falling into step beside her. Walking through the Ethelgard with Selena Rauch was an exercise in visibility. As they moved through the corridors, crew members, both human and Lupinar, pressed themselves against the walls to let her pass. The Lupinar officers lowered their heads, exposing their necks in a subtle display of submission to a dominant pack member. The humans just looked terrified. Rowan, trailing 2 steps behind her, with his blinking ankle bracelet, felt like a court jester parading behind a queen. They reached the slipweave bay, the massive double doors sliding open to reveal the cavernous engineering deck. The air here was different, charged with static and the metallic tang of coolant. Juno Kess was waiting for them at the main console. The chief engineer looked like she had not slept in 3 standard days. Her hair was a chaotic halo of static frizz, and she was aggressively typing on a holographic interface that looked redder and angrier by the second. "Well," Juno said without turning around, "if it is not the Admiral and her favorite glitches." "Report, Chief," Celine said, ignoring the sass. Juno spun her chair around. She looked at Rowan's ankle, then up at his face. "Nice bracelet. Is it the fall collection?" "It is the Please Do Not Execute Me collection," Rowan replied, moving toward the console. "What did you find in the logs?" "Nothing," Juno said, slamming her hand onto the armrest. "And that is the problem. I have gone through the transfer protocols for the moment you arrived in the Admiral's quarters. The logs are clean, scrubbed, polished." Rowan leaned over the display. "That is impossible. A misjump creates a chaotic data signature. It should look like a paint factory exploded in the code." "It does not," Juno pointed to the scrolling lines of data. "Look at the timestamps. There is a gap of exactly 0.4 seconds where the system just holds its breath, and then everything resumes as normal. Someone did not just delete the error. They smoothed over the edges. It is like someone wiping fingerprints off a glass with a brand new pair of surgical gloves." Celine leaned in, her presence looming over the 2 engineers. "Who has the clearance to do that?" "Me," Juno said flatly. "You. And the internal security override." "Octavia." Celine breathed the name like a curse. "I cannot prove it," Juno cautioned. "If I accuse internal security without a digital footprint, I will be scrubbing plasma conduits for the rest of my career. But the edits are too precise to be a glitch. A glitch is messy. This was surgical." Rowan stared at the empty space in the code. It was terrifyingly competent. "What about the physical sensors? The slipweave bay has motion detectors, thermal imaging." "Looped," Juno said. "For 10 minutes during the shift change last night, the cameras were playing back footage from the previous cycle. Standard heist protocol." Rowan frowned. "Shift change. That is the busiest time. Hundreds of crew moving through the decks." He looked around the bay. It was a jungle of pipes, conduits, and sub-processors. There were 1,000 places to hide, if you were small enough. "Hey, Juno," Rowan said softly. "Do you still have that pest problem, the vent crawlers?" Juno rolled her eyes. "Scrit, yeah, the little vermin is around somewhere." "Why," Rowan reached into his pocket and pulled out a ration bar, a compressed brick of synthetic chocolate, and high-calorie paste. He unwrapped the foil, the sweet artificial scent wafting through the air. Celine wrinkled her nose. "Put that away. It smells like chemical waste." Rowan ignored her. He crouched down near a ventilation grate at the base of the primary coolant tower. He tapped the metal 3 times. "Scrit," he whispered. I have got the premium stuff. Chocolate, not the fruit mash. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then two glowing blue eyes appeared in the darkness behind the grate. A small, clawed hand reached out, unlatched the cover with surprising dexterity, and a creature scuttled out. Skrit was a scavenger species barely 2 feet tall, covered in mottled gray fur and grease. He wore a vest made of scrap wire and discarded circuit boards. He looked at the chocolate, then at Celine, his large ears flattening against his skull in terror. Big wolf, Skrit squeaked, his voice like grinding gears. Scary. She is not hungry, Rowan promised, though he did not check with Celine first. He held out the bar. I need to know what you saw last night, during the shift change, right here. Skrit snatched the bar and took a massive bite, wrapper and all. He chewed frantically, his eyes darting around. Many boots, clomp clomp, loud. Did you see anyone mess with the console? Rowan asked. Not see, Skrit said, swallowing. Smell, or not smell. Celine stepped forward, her interest piqued. Explain. Skrit cowered slightly but kept eating. Usually crews smell like sweat, oil, food, fear. But one walked in. Tall, dark suit. Went to the brain box. He pointed a sticky finger at the main console. That one had no smell. Like air. Like nothing. Empty space. Rowan looked up at Celine. No smell. Celine's expression darkened. Lupinar rely on scent to identify individuals. To mask one's scent completely requires military-grade dampeners. Or a suit designed specifically to fool you, Rowan finished. Octavia is the head of internal security. If anyone has access to biomasking tech, it is her. The scentless one, Skrit whispered. Put a stick in the brain box, then left. A stick? Juno asked. A data drive. Skrit nodded vigorously, finishing the last of the chocolate. Then the machine coughed, and the boy fell out. He pointed at Rowan. Funny. Hilarious, Rowan said, standing up. Thanks, Skrit. The creature vanished back into the vent before Celine could ask anything else. A physical override, Juno mused. That explains why the remote logs are clean. If she plugged directly into the core, she could bypass the network safeguards. Celine turned on her heel, her coat flaring. We need to move. If she planted a physical tap, it might still be transmitting. Wait, Rowan said, catching up to her. If we just rip it out, she will know we found it. We need to see what it is doing first. Celine stopped and looked down at him. You want to leave a saboteur's device in my ship's heart? I want to catch the saboteur, Rowan corrected. If we interrupt the signal, she goes to ground. If we let it run, maybe we can trace where the data is going. Celine studied him for a long moment. Risky, but tactical. She started walking again. Come. We need to eat, and then we plan. The mess hall of the Ethelgard was a cavernous space divided into 2 sections. One side served the standard nutrient paste and reconstituted proteins for the human crew. The other side served raw cuts and high-protein density slabs for the Lupinar. When Celine walked in with Rowan trailing behind her, the conversation in the room died instantly. It was like someone had cut the power to the audio systems. 300 heads turned. Celine walked straight to the Lupinar line, grabbed a tray, and accepted a slab of red meat that made Rowan's stomach turn just looking at it. She then moved to the human line, grabbed a bowl of stew, and shoved it onto Rowan's tray. Eat, she ordered. You are burning calories just by shivering. She led him to a table in the center of the room, the officer's territory. As they sat, Rowan could feel the weight of the stairs. Specifically, the stares of the Lupinar officers at the adjacent tables. They were sniffing the air, their ears twitching. They are judging me, Rowan whispered, picking up his spoon. They are wondering why the Alpha brought a pet to the table. They are wondering why I brought a liar to the table, Celine corrected, cutting her meat with a knife that looked dangerously sharp. In Lupinar culture, deception is a physical stain. We call it mud tongue. When you lie, your pheromones shift. It creates a dissonance in the pack scent. It is considered unhygienic. Rowan paused. Unhygienic, like not washing your hands. Like carrying a contagion, Celine said, skewering a piece of meat. A pack survives on absolute trust. If one wolf lies about the location of prey or the strength of the enemy, the pack starves or dies. So we evolved to detest it. To us, a liar is worse than a coward. A liar is a cancer. Rowan looked down at his stew. Humanity did not have that luxury. We did not evolve as a pack of apex predators. We were the prey. Sometimes lying is the only way a small thing survives a big thing. We lie to hide. We lie to protect feelings. We lie to keep hope alive when the math says we should be dead. Celine stopped chewing. She looked at him, her golden eyes unblinking. Is that what you are doing, Rowan Hale, lying to survive? I am sitting across from a woman who could snap my spine with one hand, Rowan said, meeting her gaze. I am absolutely curating my truth to ensure I see tomorrow morning. A low rumble started in Celine's chest. It took Rowan a second to realize she was chuckling. You have a spine at least, she said. That is something. A shadow fell over their table. Lieutenant Vargas, a massive Lupinar, with a scar running through his left eye, stood over them. He sniffed loudly in Rowan's direction. Admiral, Vargas rumbled. The air is stale here. Perhaps the human would prefer to eat in the maintenance shafts, with the other rats. Rowan felt the adrenaline spike. The bio-tracker on his ankle buzzed a warning. Celine did not look up from her meal. Lieutenant Vargas, I was not aware you had been promoted to sanitation officer. I speak only for the honor of the mess, Admiral. Vargas growled, his eyes locked on Rowan. He smells of fear and deception. It ruins the appetite. Rowan slowly put down his spoon. He looked up at the towering wolfman. I am not as tasty as I look, big guy, Rowan said, his voice trembling only slightly. High cholesterol. Lots of preservatives. Vargas bared his teeth. And, Celine said, her voice slicing through the tension like a razor, I hate sweets. She looked up then. The gold in her eyes flared. Sit down, Vargas, or I will have you reassigned to a listening post so far out in the void, you will forget what fresh meat smells like. Vargas hesitated, his ears flattening. He gave a stiff nod to Celine, glared once more at Rowan, and retreated to his table. Rowan exhaled. Thanks, I think. Do not thank me, Celine said, returning to her meal. He was right. You do smell like fear. Fix it. After the meal, Celine ordered Rowan to report to the medical bay for his mandatory temporal scan, while she went to see Dr. Amara Finch. Dr. Finch's office was a sanctuary of soft lighting and old paper books, a stark contrast to the chrome and steel of the rest of the ship. Finch was a human woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a mind that could dissect a psyche faster than a laser scalpel. He is stable, Finch said, pouring tea into 2 porcelain cups. Physically, at least. But the temporal radiation in his cells is elevated. He is definitely a conduit, Celine. Celine paced the small room, her hands clasped behind her back. He is useful. He sees things in the code that my engineers miss. Is that all he is? Finch asked gently. Useful. Celine stopped pacing. What are you implying, Doctor? I am observing, Finch said, taking a sip of tea. You are protecting him with a ferocity that exceeds standard protocol. You stood between him and Octavia. You humiliated Lieutenant Vargas for him. He is a witness, Celine said stiffly. And he is under my protection. Celine, Finch put the cup down. You have been carrying the weight of this fleet alone for 5 years. You are surrounded by soldiers who fear you, and politicians who want to use you. And suddenly, a man falls from the sky, a man who is not afraid to sass you, who looks at you not as a weapon, but as a person. Be careful. Are you protecting the peace? Or are you protecting someone who makes you feel easy to breathe around? Celine turned to the window, staring out at the streaks of starlight. I do not need someone to help me breathe, Amara. I need someone to help me stop the suffocation of this alliance. If Rowan Hale can help me do that, I will keep him alive. That is all. If you say so, Finch murmured. But be warned. Octavia knows how to hunt too, and she does not hunt with claws. She hunts with doubts. While Celine was with the doctor, Rowan was intercepted. He had just finished his scan and was heading back to the lift when two security officers in black uniforms stepped out of the shadows. They did not draw weapons, but they blocked the corridor effectively. Mr. Hale, one of them said, Director Sable requests a moment of your time. I am due on the bridge, Rowan lied. It will only take a moment. She has tea. Rowan knew he had no choice. He followed them to the internal security sector. The lighting here was harsher white and clinical. Octavia Sable was sitting behind a glass desk that seemed to float in the center of her office. The room was soundproof. The hum of the ship vanished the moment the door sealed. Rowan, she said, gesturing to a chair. Please, sit. Chamomile. Or do you prefer something stronger? I am fine standing, Rowan said. Octavia smiled. It was the smile of a shark contemplating a seal. Suit yourself. I wanted to apologize for our earlier encounter. I was zealous. The security of the fleet is a heavy burden. I am sure, Rowan said. I worry about Admiral Rauch, Octavia said, her voice dripping with faux concern. She is a brilliant warrior. But the Lupinar are driven by instincts we cannot truly understand. Obsessions. She tapped a finger on her desk. They are excellent hunters. When they catch a scent, they pursue it until the end. But sometimes they play with their prey before they kill it. Has she told you why she kept you? Because I can fix the slipweave, Rowan said. Oh, please. We have 1,000 technicians, Octavia laughed softly. No. She kept you because she smells something on you. A secret. A weakness. Lupinar are drawn to weakness. She is not keeping you safe, Rowan. She is keeping you for herself. Like a shiny toy found in the dirt. Rowan felt a cold knot in his stomach. The Admiral has been nothing but honorable. Honor is a wolf's word for pride, Octavia said. Ask yourself, why does she need you to investigate? Why isolate you from the rest of the crew? Maybe she wants to find the saboteur. Or maybe she is the one sabotaging the peace, and she needs a human scapegoat to pin it on when the time comes. She let that hang in the air. Think about it, Octavia whispered. If you ever want to come to the side that values humanity over instinct, my door is open. Rowan turned and walked out. He kept his face neutral, but his hands were shaking. Octavia was good. She knew exactly where to place the wedge. Rowan found Celine back in engineering. He didn't mention the meeting with Octavia. He didn't want to see how Celine would react or, worse, see if Octavia was right. I matched the badge, Rowan said, throwing the scorched piece of metal onto the workbench. He pulled up a holographic map. Sanctuary Colony 4. It was hit 12 hours ago. A raid. No survivors reported yet. Celine stared at the map. 12 hours ago, but you arrived with the badge 10 hours ago. Exactly, Rowan said. The timing is too close. The misjump didn't just pull me from the maintenance deck. It pulled debris from a raid that was happening light years away. Simultaneous connection. The slipweave connects 2 points, Celine said. Point A, the ship. Point B, the target destination. Where does the raid fit in? Point C, Rowan said. A triangular connection. Someone is using the slipweave network to beam the coordinates of these shelters to a third party. The misjumps are not errors. They are data packets. The system hiccups because it is handling a massive encrypted upload during the transfer. So the raiders get the location, Celine said, her voice cold. And they attack. And the machine, Rowan said, pacing. It feels guilty. Celine looked at him. Machines do not feel guilt. This one does. Or rather, the safety protocols are trying to reject the foreign command. That is why it spits things out. It is trying to show us what is happening. It is vomiting up the evidence. Prove it, Celine said. Rowan grabbed a standard cargo crate. He emptied it of tools. We send this. Empty. Targeted for the nearest relay station. But we watch the buffer. If I am right, the override will kick in to piggyback on the signal. Do it, Celine ordered. Rowan initiated the sequence. The slipweave hummed the violet light building. The crate dissolved into a stream of particles. The console flashed red. The familiar shudder ran through the deck. Error. Matter displacement detected. The teleporter whined and then crack. The light faded. The crate was gone. But sitting on the teleport pad was something small and metallic. Celine walked onto the platform. She knelt and picked it up. It was a bullet. A heavy caliber slug mushroomed from impact. And it was hot. Smoking hot. She hissed, dropping it. It is fresh. It came from a battlefield, Rowan said, his voice hollow. Somewhere out there right now, people are shooting. And the machine just intercepted a round. Celine looked at the bullet, then at Rowan. The doubt Octavia had planted in his mind wavered. Celine's anger was real. The heat coming off her was not manipulation. It was rage. They are using my ship to kill innocents, she snarled. We are going to the tactical room. Now! The tactical room was the nerve center of the Ethelgard. A massive holographic globe dominated the center, surrounded by tiered walkways, where officers monitored the fleet. When Celine entered the room, went silent. She walked to the central podium, Rowan trailing her like a shadow. Admiral on deck, an officer shouted. At ease, Celine barked. Clear the central display. I want a full overlay of the slipweave relay network and the recent colony attacks. Admiral, a senior tactician, a human named Commander Vance, stepped forward. We are not authorized to access the colony data. That is under internal security's jurisdiction. I am the admiral of this fleet, Celine said, her voice dangerously calm. My jurisdiction is the void and everything that breathes in it. Do it. Vance hesitated, then nodded. The map populated. Red dots appeared attack sites. Now, Celine said, turning to Rowan. Show them. Rowan stepped up to the console. He felt the eyes of 20 veteran officers on him. He was a tech with grease under his fingernails and a tracking anklet. He didn't belong here. He looked at Celine. She gave him a microscopic nod. Speak. Rowan took a breath. If you overlay the trajectory of the Ethelgard's jumps over the last month with these attack times, look. He typed in the commands. Blue lines connected the ship's path to the red dots. Every time we use the slipweave, Rowan said, his voice gaining strength, a colony was hit within 6 hours. We are not just a transport ship. We are the broadcasting tower. Someone is using our jump signature to mask the transmission of the coordinates. To the enemy, it looks like background static. To the raiders, it is a map. A murmur went through the room. This implies treason from the highest levels, Commander Vance whispered. It implies that someone wants the Accord to fail, Celine said. Someone who thinks peace makes us weak. She looked around the room. From this moment, no jump is authorized without my personal code. And Mr. Hale is to be given full access to the tactical logs. He is my proxy in this investigation. Anyone who blocks him answers to me. Rowan felt a flush of heat. It was validation. He wasn't just a pet. He was a partner. But as he looked at the map at the red dots, signifying death and destruction, the warmth turned to ice. Later, the ship cycle dimmed to night mode. The corridors were quiet. Rowan and Celine stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. "You did well today," Celine said. She did not look at him. She watched the stars. "I just pointed at the dots," Rowan said. "You saw the pattern. My officers see only targets and threats. They do not see the connections." She turned to him. "Why are you really here, Rowan?" Rowan gripped the railing. The question hung in the air. He could lie. He could give her the duty and honor speech, but he remembered the mess hall. Lying dirties the pack. "My brother," Rowan said softly. "Elias. He was a terraformer. He was on a transport ship 6 months ago. The Horizon's Edge." Celine stiffened. The Horizon's Edge was lost to a navigational error. All hands presumed dead. "It was a misjump," Rowan said. "I saw the preliminary report before it was redacted. The slipweave malfunctioned. But the ship didn't just crash. It vanished. Like the crate today. I think he was sent somewhere. Or taken." He looked at her, his eyes burning. "I joined the fleet to find the glitch that took him. I thought it was a mechanical failure. But now I think the Horizon was a test run. Someone was testing the system. And my brother was the guinea pig." Celine was silent for a long time. She looked at him, and her expression softened. The predator was gone, replaced by something ancient and sad. "We have all lost something to the dark," she said. "I need to find him, Celine," Rowan said. He used her name, without the title. "If he is out there, if the raiders have him," Celine reached out. For a second, he thought she was going to touch his hand. Instead, she placed her hand on the railing next to his, close enough that he could feel her warmth. "We will find who is holding the leash," she said firmly. "We will track the signal back to the source. And if your brother is there, we will bring him home." She turned her head, her golden eyes locking onto his. "But Rowan," she said, her voice dropping to a warning growl, "do not run ahead of me. If you go rogue, if you let your emotions blind you, you will die. And I do not want to write that paperwork." "Understood," Rowan said. "Good." She pushed off the railing. "Get some sleep, rookie. Tomorrow we hunt." Rowan watched her leave. He felt a strange mixture of relief and terror. He had told her the truth, and she hadn't eaten him. She had joined his pack. But as he walked back to his quarters, he passed a reflective panel. He stopped. His reflection was standing there staring back at him. But the reflection wasn't wearing the tracking anklet. And the reflection was crying. Rowan blinked, and the image snapped back to normal. The echoes were getting stronger. The universe was screaming at him. And he was starting to suspect that the slipweave wasn't just coughing up secrets. It was counting down. The headache began 20 minutes before the jump cycle initiated. It was not a normal ache. It did not throb behind the eyes or tighten the band of muscle around the skull. Instead, it felt as though someone had inserted a thin, cold needle directly into the center of Rowan Hale's brain and was gently twisting it to a frequency that human ears were not designed to hear. Rowan gripped the railing of the maintenance gantry, his knuckles turning white. Below him, the slipweave core was waking up. The violet light pulsed with a rhythmic breathing cadence, but to Rowan, it sounded like a choir of screaming voices trapped under a mile of ice. "Coordinates," he whispered the word, slipping out before he could stop it. "Sector 7, Vector 9. The gravity well is unstable." "What was that, Hale?" Rowan snapped his head up. Juno Kess was standing on the opposite side of the console, her tablet illuminating her face with a harsh blue glow. "Nothing," Rowan said, rubbing his temples. "Just talking to the machine, trying to convince it to behave." "It is a quantum displacement engine, not a golden retriever," Juno muttered, tapping her screen. "Although it sheds about as much radiation. We are green for the test cycle. Keep your eyes on the flux capacitors. If they spike above 5%, we abort." Rowan nodded, but the voice in his head was getting louder. It was not his voice. It was a chaotic overlap of sounds: a woman crying, a man shouting orders, the static hiss of a dying radio. And through it all, a string of numbers repeated like a mantra. 0, 4, 9, descent, 0, 4, 9. The core flared. The violet light expanded, filling the engineering bay. The familiar sensation of the universe holding its breath washed over them. And then, for a split second, Rowan was not on the gantry. He was standing in a field of burning snow. The sky was a bruised purple. A massive, jagged structure loomed in the distance, tearing the clouds apart. He could smell sulfur and charred meat. He could feel the biting cold on his skin despite his jumpsuit. "Help us." The whisper was right against his ear. Rowan. The reality of the ship snapped back into place with the violence of a rubber band breaking. Rowan stumbled, grabbing the console to keep from falling over the railing. He was gasping for air, sweat drenching his back. The core was humming peacefully. The cycle had completed without an error. "Data transfer complete," the automated system announced. "No anomalies detected." "No anomalies," Rowan wheezed. "Are you kidding me?" Juno was staring at him, her expression shifting from annoyance to concern. "You look like you just saw a ghost, kid. Your heart rate monitor is pinging off the charts." "I did not see a ghost," Rowan said, his voice shaking. "I heard one." Dr. Amara Finch adjusted the bioscanner, her face bathed in the soft, warm light of the medical bay. She studied the holographic projection of Rowan's neural pathways, which looked less like a healthy brain and more like a map of a city during a lightning storm. Celine Rauch stood in the corner, her arms crossed, her presence filling the room like a pressurized storm front. She had not spoken since she dragged Rowan down here. "It is fascinating," Dr. Finch said softly, "and terrifying." "Give me the tactical assessment, Doctor," Celine said. "Is he compromised?" "He is crowded," Finch corrected. She pointed to a cluster of bright red synapses, firing in Rowan's temporal lobe. "The slipweave technology works by entangling matter with a specific coordinate in space-time. Usually, the buffer protects the biological mind from the space between. But Rowan has been exposed to a raw misjump, and now he is acting as a receiver." Rowan sat on the edge of the biobed, his legs dangling. "A receiver for what radio stations? Because the playlist is terrible." "Memories," Finch said, looking at him with deep sympathy. "Echoes. When the slipweave misfires or when it is tampered with, it does not just displace matter. It shears off fragments of the local reality, sounds, images, emotions. They are floating in the quantum foam, and you, Rowan, are pulling them in." "The coordinates I heard," Rowan said, rubbing his eyes. "Sector 7. Is that real?" "We checked," Celine said, her voice grim. "It is a debris field near the outer rim. A convoy was ambushed there 3 days ago. No survivors." The silence in the room was heavy. Rowan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "So I am hallucinating dead people," Rowan said. "You are remembering them," Finch corrected. "These memories do not belong to you, but your brain is processing them as if they were your own. That is the danger. If the signal gets too strong, it could overwrite your own personality. You could lose yourself in the echo." Celine stepped forward, her boots clicking sharply on the floor. She stopped in front of Rowan, forcing him to look up at her. "Can he still work?" she asked. "Celine," Finch warned. "He is risking permanent neural damage." "Can he work?" Celine repeated, her eyes locked on Rowan. Rowan looked into those golden eyes. He saw the calculation there, but he also saw the desperation. She needed him. The fleet was blind, and he was the only one who could hear the walls talking. "I can work," Rowan said. "Just keep some aspirin handy." Celine nodded once. "Good. Because we are not done. Get up, Hale. We are going to the training deck." The training deck, Rowan slid off the bed, stumbling slightly. I thought I was the tech guy. Tech guys belong in chairs. If you are going to be hunting monsters with me, Celine said, turning for the door, I need to know if you can run, or if I need to carry you. The training deck was a stark, brutalist chamber of gray mats and impact-resistant walls. The air smelled of ozone and recycled sweat. It was empty, save for a few training drones hovering silently near the ceiling. Celine stripped off her heavy Admiral's coat, revealing a sleeveless undershirt that clung to her frame. The muscles in her arms shifted like coiled steel cables. She kicked off her boots, standing barefoot on the mats. Rule 1 of survival, Celine said, pacing in a slow circle. Assume everyone wants to kill you, because eventually they will. Rowan stood awkwardly, near the edge of the mat, still in his jumpsuit. I am pretty good at running away. It is my signature move. Running is a valid tactic, Celine said. But sometimes the corridor ends. Come here. Rowan stepped onto the mat. He felt ridiculous. He was a man of circuits and codes, about to spar with a woman who could probably bench press the entire engineering console. Attack me, Celine ordered. I am sorry, what? Attack me. Strike to injure. Do not hold back. Rowan laughed nervously. Admiral, with all due respect, if I hit you, I will break my hand. And then you will kill me. Celine moved. It was not a movement Rowan could track. 1 second, she was 10 feet away. The next, she was inside his guard. She swept his legs, and the world tilted. Rowan hit the mat hard, the air exploding from his lungs. Before he could wheeze, Celine's hand was around his throat, pinning him down. Her face was inches from his, her lips pulled back to reveal the tips of her fangs. You are dead, she whispered. My enemy does not hesitate. Why do you... She released him and stood up, backing away. Again, Rowan groaned, rolling onto his side. This is not training. This is tenderizing. He got up. This time he was wary. He watched her shoulders, her hips. Celine lunged. A straight punch aimed at his solar plexus. Rowan's brain did not process the move. His body did. 6 months on the run in the lower decks of the transport ships, dodging debt collectors, and corrupt port officials had taught him things he did not put on his resume. Rowan twisted his torso to the left, letting her fist graze his ribs. As she passed, he used her momentum, hooking his leg behind her knee and shoving her shoulder. It was a dirty street-fighting move. It was clumsy, but it worked. Celine stumbled. She did not fall. She was too graceful for that, but she had to plant a hand on the mat to catch herself. She froze. The silence in the room was absolute. Rowan stood there, breathing hard, his hands raised in a defensive posture that was clearly not taught in the academy. Celine slowly straightened up. She turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, but her nostrils flared, inhaling sharply. That, she said, her voice low, was not a technician's reflex. Rowan lowered his hands, his heart hammering against his ribs. I grew up in a rough neighborhood. You learned to dodge. You pivoted your center of gravity, Celine said, walking toward him. You anticipated the strike vector. You did not just dodge, you countered. She stopped right in front of him. She smelled of musk and heat, a scent that was overwhelming in its intensity. Who are you really, Rowan Hale? She asked. A technician who falls into my bedroom, a psychic who hears the dead, a fighter who moves like a cornered rat. I am just a guy trying not to get hit, Rowan said, his voice tight. Does it matter? It matters, Celine said, because Octavia Sable is spreading rumors. She says you are a plant, a spy sent to infiltrate my command. She says your clumsiness is an act. She leaned in her golden eyes, searching his face for any sign of deception, the mud tongue she despised. Are you weaponizing your incompetence, rookie? Rowan held her gaze. He wanted to tell her everything. About the brother he was looking for. About the years spent hiding. But the words stuck in his throat. "I am not a spy, Celine," he said. "I am just adaptable." Celine stared at him for a long moment. Then the corner of her mouth quirked up. "Adaptable," she repeated. "Fine. Then adapt to this." She swept his legs again. This time, Rowan hit the mat and stayed there. "Get up," Celine said, offering a hand. "If you are going to be my partner, you need to learn how to fall without bruising your ego." Rowan took her hand. Her grip was iron-strong, but warm. For a second, as she pulled him up, they were close, too close. He could see the flecks of amber in her irises. He could feel the dangerous power radiating off her. And then, the intercom crackled. "Admiral, hail! You need to get to engineering immediately." It was Juno, and she sounded scared. The atmosphere in engineering was suffocating. Juno had opened a maintenance panel near the base of the slipweave core, exposing a tangle of multicolored wires. "Look," Juno said, pointing a shaking finger at a thick black cable that had been spliced into the primary power coupling. "That is not standard," Rowan said, kneeling down. "That is a parasitic line." "It runs straight through the bulkhead," Juno said. "I traced it. It goes down into the sublevels. But look where it connects on the other end." She pulled up a schematic on her tablet. The line bypassed the main logs and fed directly into the external communication array. "Someone has hardwired the teleporter to the comms dish," Celine said, her voice cold. "So every time we jump, the surge powers a broadcast." "Exactly," Juno said. "But that is not the worst part. I tried to cut the line. The system had fought back." "Fought back?" Rowan asked. "It triggered a feedback loop, nearly fried my data pad. And then the core did this." Juno pointed to the containment platform. Sitting in the center of the ring, bathed in the idle violet glow of the machine, was an object. It was a collar, but not a tracking collar like the one on Rowan's ankle. This was a piece of art. Heavy silver etched with intricate weaving patterns of vines and thorns. In the center was a large, dull gemstone that looked like a clouded eye. Celine stopped breathing. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Celine walked toward the platform, her movements stiff, almost mechanical. She reached out a trembling hand but did not touch the object. "Admiral," Rowan asked softly, "do you know what that is?" Celine did not answer. She was staring at the collar, as if it were a venomous snake. Her ears were flattened against her skull, and a low, involuntary whine escaped her throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated pain. "It is a mating collar," Juno whispered to Rowan. "Old Lupinar tradition. High caste. You give it to your bonded partner. It means eternal loyalty." Rowan looked at the collar, then at Celine. The mighty Admiral, the Wolf of the Void, looked like she was about to shatter. "Is it yours?" Rowan asked, stepping closer to her. Celine closed her eyes. "It belonged to Kale." The name hung in the air. "He was my second," Celine said, her voice brittle. "And my bond, 5 years ago, during the skirmish at the Vale Nebula." She opened her eyes and they were wet. "We were retreating. The drive was damaged. We had to jump blind to escape the ambush. I gave the order. I pulled the lever." She took a shaky breath. "The ship made it. Kale did not. The slipweave malfunctioned. He was in the engine room. 1 second he was there. The next he was just gone. Nobody. No debris. Just void." Rowan looked at the collar. "And now it is here." "The machine is taunting me," Celine hissed. "It is throwing my debt at me." "Or," Rowan said gently, "it is trying to tell you where he went." Celine spun on him, her fangs bared. "Do not give me hope. Human hope is a poison. He is dead." I felt his bond snap. I felt him die. Rowan did not back down. He stepped into her personal space, ignoring the predator's warning snarl. "Admiral," he said, trying to keep his voice light, Are you proposing to the machine because I have to tell you it is not your type? It is cold, distant, and has terrible communication skills. Celine blinked. The sheer absurdity of the comment seemed to short-circuit her rage. She stared at him, the snarl fading into a look of bewildered annoyance. You are an idiot, she said. I am, Rowan agreed. But I am an idiot who thinks this collar proves something. Cale did not just vanish. He was sent somewhere. The same place the badge came from. The same place the bullet came from. There is a dump site, Celine. A place where the errors go. Celine looked back at the collar. She reached out and picked it up. Her fingers traced the engraving. If he is alive, she whispered. The thought was terrifying to her. To hope meant to risk losing him twice. We need to find out where this cable goes, Rowan said, steering the conversation back to the mission. Juno said it goes to the sublevels. But where? There is a blind spot, Juno said, tapping her screen. Sector 99. It is an old auxiliary buffer room, sealed off during the retrofit 10 years ago. It is not on the official deck plans anymore. Skrit knows where it is, Rowan said. Celine clipped the silver collar to her belt. She stood tall, the mask of the Admiral, sliding back into place. But her eyes were different now. The ice had cracked. Then find the rat, Celine ordered. We are going hunting. The corridors of the sublevels were dark, narrow, and smelled of stagnant water. This was the guts of the ship, the places where the automated scrubbers rarely went. Skrit moved ahead of them, a small, gray shadow, scurrying along the pipes. Rowan and Celine followed their flashlights, cutting through the gloom. Rumors are spreading, Celine said quietly as they walked. Octavia has been busy. Half the crew thinks you are a saboteur. The other half thinks you are my pet. Pet is better than saboteur, Rowan said. Better food. They are saying I am compromised, Celine continued. That my judgment is clouded by affection. Rowan tripped over a loose grate. He caught himself. Affection for me? Have they seen us together? You threaten to execute me twice a day. That is how Lupinar show affection, Celine said dryly. Rowan looked at her. He couldn't tell if she was joking. In the dim light, her profile was sharp, beautiful, and alien. He felt a strange pull in his chest, the same pull he felt when the echoes whispered. But this was real. We are here, Skrit squeaked, stopping in front of a heavy, rusted blast door. Bad place. Cold place. Whispers inside. Skrit refused to go further. He scurried away into the darkness. The door had no electronic lock. It was a manual wheel sealed with years of grime. Together, Celine said. They grabbed the wheel. Celine's strength was immense, but the mechanism groaned in protest. Rowan put his back into it, straining until his muscles burned. Slowly, with a screech of tearing metal, the door turned. They pushed it open. The room beyond was not dark. It was lit by a swirling, chaotic fog of white light. The buffer. It was a cavernous space filled with rows of towering server banks, but the air was thick with static. And floating in the center of the room were shapes. By the stars, Celine breathed. They were frozen in midair. Ghostly, translucent figures. Like three-dimensional photographs made of smoke. There was a crate of ammunition, a piece of hull plating, a rifle, and people. They were not moving. They were frozen in moments of terror or confusion. A woman reaching for a door that wasn't there. A soldier shouting a warning. They are echoes, Rowan whispered, stepping into the room. The static made the hair on his arm stand up. This is where the system stores the data before it rematerializes it. But these were never rematerialized. They were deleted. He walked through the gallery of ghosts. It was a graveyard of errors. Celine, Rowan called out, his voice trembling. Look. Celine walked over to where he was standing. She followed his gaze. Floating near the back of the room was a figure. It was a man in a gray jumpsuit. He had messy dark hair. He was holding a sonic screwdriver. He looked terrified. It was Rowan. But it wasn't a reflection. This Rowan was looking in a different direction. He looked older, tired. There was a scar on his cheek that the real Rowan didn't have. "What is this?" Celine asked, reaching out but stopping short of touching the ghost. "It is me," Rowan said, feeling bile rise in his throat. "But it is not me. It is an echo. A version of me that did not make it. Or a version of you that is waiting to happen," a voice said. They spun around. The door slammed shut behind them. The wheel spun, locking them in. "Octavia!" Celine growled. The intercom in the room crackled. "I warned you, Admiral." Octavia. Sable's voice was smooth, triumphant. "I told you he was dangerous. Look at him. He is glitching. He is not even real." "Let us out, Octavia!" Celine shouted. "I cannot do that," Octavia said. "You have stumbled into a sensitive area. This is the trash compactor, essentially, where we keep the mistakes." The server banks around them began to hum. The white fog grew brighter. The static turned into a high-pitched whine. "Rowan!" Celine said, grabbing his arm. "She is activating the purge cycle." "She is going to wipe the buffer," Rowan said, his eyes wide. "She is going to delete the evidence. And us." Suddenly, the ghost Rowan turned its head. It looked directly at the real Rowan. And it spoke. "Key." The word exploded in Rowan's head. The slipweave core in the room, a smaller auxiliary unit, slammed into life. A beam of violet light shot out, hitting Rowan squarely in the chest. He screamed. It was not pain. It was connection. His mind was ripped open. He could feel the entire network. He could see the data streams. He could see the coordinates of every raid, every misjump, every stolen life. He was the key. His unique biosignature, altered by his arrival, was the only thing that could unlock the encrypted logs. "He is accessing the network," Octavia's voice lost its composure. "Stop him! Overload the core!" The hum intensified. Arcs of electricity began to jump from the servers to Rowan. He convulsed, his back arching. "Rowan!" Celine grabbed him, trying to pull him away, but the energy burned her hands. I have it," Rowan gasped, his eyes glowing with the same violet light as the machine. "I can see the source. I can see Elias. I can see Kale." "Let go," Celine shouted. "It is killing you." "If I let go, we lose the data," Rowan gritted out through clenched teeth. "We lose the proof." "Admiral," Octavia's voice cut in. "If you do not cut the hard line, he will fry the entire system. And himself. You have a choice. Save your pet or save the fleet's navigation grid." Celine looked at the emergency cutoff switch on the wall. It was 10 feet away. Then she looked at Rowan. He was shaking violently, blood trickling from his nose. The ghost Rowan was fading, being consumed by the energy. "Celine," Rowan whispered. "I can hold it. Just a little longer." "No," Celine said. She did not run to the switch. She did not run to Octavia. She grabbed the silver collar from her belt, and she slammed it onto the console next to Rowan. Metal met metal. The silver acted as a lightning rod. "Take it!" she roared at the machine. "You want a connection? Take this!" The energy arc snapped away from Rowan and struck the collar. The gemstone in the center exploded. The feedback loop shattered. The auxiliary core whined and powered down. The white fog dissipated. Rowan collapsed, falling into Celine's arms. He was smoking, unconscious. The room plunged into darkness, save for the emergency red lights. "You fool!" Octavia's voice whispered over the intercom. "You just destroyed the only link to the truth." Celine held Rowan's limp body against her chest. She could feel his heart beating weak, fluttering, but there. She looked up at the camera in the corner of the room. Her golden eyes were burning with a cold, terrifying fire. "I did not destroy the link, Octavia," Celine snarled. "I just saved the witness. And now I am coming for you." She lifted Rowan effortlessly in her arms. He was light, but the weight of what had just happened settled on her shoulders like a mountain. She had chosen him. She had chosen the living over the dead. She had sacrificed the chance to find Kale to save Rowan. The choice was made. Rowan groaned, his head lolling against her shoulder. "Did we win?" "Sleep, rookie," Celine whispered, pressing her cheek against his soot-stained hair. "The hunt is just beginning." The blast doors of the auxiliary buffer room hissed open, not with the smooth hydraulic sigh of a functioning ship, but with the grinding screech of metal forcing its way past safety locks. The red emergency light strobed, turning the smoke-filled chamber into a disorienting kaleidoscope of crimson and shadow. Celine Rauch stood amidst the fading ozone of the destroyed mating collar, her chest heaving, Rowan Hale's unconscious body draped across her arms like a broken marionette. "Admiral Celine Rauch!" A voice, amplified by a helmet vocoder, boomed from the corridor. "Step away from the saboteur. You are under arrest for the destruction of vital military intelligence and aiding a known traitor." Celine did not flinch. She shifted Rowan's weight, pulling him tighter against her chest armor. A wall of security officers, human and Lupinar alike, stood at the threshold, weapons charged and leveled at her heart. Behind them, Octavia Sable stepped into the red light. She looked immaculate, her black uniform absorbing the glare, a datapad resting casually in her hand. "A pity," Octavia said, her voice smooth, cutting through the tension. "To see a wolf of your stature brought down by sentimentality. You fried the buffer logs to save him, didn't you? You chose a pet over the fleet." "I chose a witness over a cover-up," Celine snarled, the sound vibrating deep in her throat. "Semantics," Octavia waved a hand. "Take the prisoner to Isolation Ward 4, and take the Admiral to the brig. It seems we need a new commanding officer." "If you touch him," Celine warned, her golden eyes narrowing to slits, "I will show you exactly why my species survived the Great Frost." "If you resist," Octavia countered coldly, "I will have my men open fire. You might survive the first volley, Admiral, but Mr. Hale in his condition, he will be missed." Celine froze. She looked down at Rowan's pale face, the soot smudged across his cheekbones. He was breathing shallowly, his heart rate fluttering against her arm like a trapped bird. Fighting now would kill him. Slowly, with a dignity that made the armed guards hesitate, Celine lowered Rowan to the deck. "This is not over, Octavia," Celine whispered. "Oh, it is," Octavia smiled. "For you, it is entirely over." Two guards rushed forward, dragging Rowan away by his arms. Celine watched him go, her hands curling into fists so tight her knuckles cracked. Then she held out her wrists. "Cuff me," she commanded, "before I change my mind." Consciousness returned to Rowan Hale in fragments. First the smell, sterile antiseptic and cold metal. Then the sound, a low rhythmic beep of a vitals monitor. Finally, the pain, a splitting headache that felt like his brain had been taken apart and put back together by someone who didn't read the manual. He opened his eyes. He was strapped to a metal chair in a room that was entirely white. No shadows, no corners. Just blinding infinite white. Sitting across from him, legs crossed, was Octavia Sable. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Rowan," she said. She placed a cup of steaming tea on the small table between them. "Or should I say the land of the useful?" Rowan tested the restraints on his wrists. Solid steel. "I take it I am not getting a medal for surviving the buffer." "You are getting a choice," Octavia said. She leaned forward, her eyes scanning him with clinical detachment. "You are not an engineer, Rowan. You know that now, don't you? You are a vessel, a biological hard drive, I am a person. Rowan croaked, his throat dry. You are a key, Octavia corrected. The slipweave anomaly altered your neural pathways. You are now the only thing in this fleet that can interface directly with the network without burning out. Celine knew that. That is why she kept you close. She wanted to use you. She saved me, Rowan said. She destroyed the data to stop the feedback loop. She destroyed the data to hide her incompetence, Octavia said, sipping her tea. But the network is still there, and you are still connected to it. I can see the activity in your brain scans. The coordinates are trying to get out. She stood up and walked behind his chair, trailing a finger along his shoulder. Work with me, Rowan. Let me extract the coordinates. We can locate the pirate bases, destroy them, and bring peace to the Accord. You will be a hero. I will give you a new identity, a home on a core world. No more Greece, no more running. And Celine? Rowan asked. Celine is a relic, Octavia said dismissively. She belongs to a time of honor and blood. We are in the age of information and control. She will be retired, honorably if you cooperate, executed for treason if you do not. Rowan closed his eyes. He could hear the hum of the ship, and beneath it faintly the whisper. 0, 4, 9. The door opens. You want to use me to open a door, Rowan realized. You are not trying to stop the raids, you are trying to control them. Octavia stopped moving. She leaned down, her lips brushing his ear. Chaos is a ladder, Rowan. If I control the slipweave, I control who gets attacked and who stays safe. I control the fear, and fear unites humanity faster than any treaty. She walked back to the door. Think about it. You have 1 hour. Then I stop asking nicely and start using the drills. The door slid shut. Rowan was alone in the White Room. Well, he muttered to the empty air, that went poorly. Suddenly, the vent above his head rattled. Clang, clang. A small screw fell onto his lap, then another. The vent cover popped open, swinging down on a hinge. A familiar grease-stained face peered out. Juno, Rowan whispered. Shut up, kid, Juno Kess hissed. Do you have any idea how tight these ducts are? I think I dislocated my hip 3 sectors back. She dropped a laser cutter into his lap. Cut the cuffs. Fast. We have 90 seconds before the security sweep. How did you get in here? Rowan asked, fumbling with the cutter. The beam sliced through the steel restraints like butter. I am the chief engineer, Juno grunted, pulling herself halfway out of the vent. I built half the ship. I know back doors that are not even on the blueprints. Now move your ass. Rowan scrambled up onto the table and hauled himself into the vent. It was a tight squeeze, smelling of dust and ozone. Where is Celine? Rowan asked as he crawled behind Juno. Brig, Juno said, crawling rapidly on her elbows. Level 5. I have Skrit working on the door locks, but we need to get there before Octavia realizes her prize pony has fled the stable. Why are you doing this, Juno? Rowan asked. You could lose your commission. Your life. Juno paused for a second, looking back at him. Her face was streaked with grime, but her eyes were fierce. I do not like the Admiral, Juno admitted. She is arrogant, she is scary, and she eats raw meat at the staff meetings. But Octavia looked me in the eye and told me the logs were glitching when I knew they were edited. I hate a liar, Rowan. And I really hate a liar who thinks I am stupid. She started crawling again. Plus, you owe me 20 credits for that card game last week. Can't pay me if you're dead. The brig on level 5 was a fortress within a fortress. But fortress walls meant nothing if you knew which conduit carried the power to the magnetic locks. Skrit was waiting for them at a junction box holding 2 severed wires and looking very pleased with himself. Zap, Skrit squeaked, grinning. Big door, go sleep. The heavy containment door to cell 1 was cracked open. The magnetic seal was dead. Rowan pushed it open. Celine was sitting on the narrow bunk, her hands cuffed in front of her. She looked up as they entered. She didn't look surprised. She looked ready. "Took you long enough," she said. "Traffic was terrible," Rowan said, rushing over with the laser cutter. He sliced her cuffs. "We have to go. Octavia gave me the villain monologue. She is not stopping the raids. She is orchestrating them. She wants to use the slipweave to control the sector through fear." Celine rubbed her wrists. A low growl started in her chest. "Then we do not just escape, we end her." "We need to get to the core," Juno said from the doorway. "If we can manually lock down the slipweave, we can cut off her access." "The corridors will be swarming with security," Celine said, standing up. She rolled her neck, a sickening crack echoing in the small cell. "We cannot take the main lifts." "We take the vanes," Rowan said. Celine looked at him. "The maintenance shafts. They are unshielded. The heat alone." "It is the only way," Rowan said. "Unless you want to fight 300 guards in a hallway." Celine smirked. "I would enjoy the exercise. But we do not have the time." She grabbed Rowan's shoulder. "Lead the way, rookie." The vanes of the Ethelgard were a nightmare of steam, red emergency lighting and deafening noise. These were the service tunnels that ran alongside the massive plasma conduits, powering the engines. The heat was oppressive. Sweat soaked through Rowan's jumpsuit within minutes. The air tasted of copper and burning rubber. They ran. Celine moved like a phantom. Despite the cramped space and the treacherous footing of the grating, her steps were silent. She vaulted over pipes and ducked under steam jets with a fluidity that made her seem part of the shadows. Rowan, on the other hand, sounded like a bag of wrenches falling down a staircase. "Quiet!" Celine hissed, pulling him back as a steam vent erupted inches from his face. "I am trying," Rowan wheezed, wiping steam from his eyes. "My species was designed for planes, not ovens." "Keep moving," Celine ordered. "Internal sensors are tracking thermal spikes. If we stop, they find us." Above them, through the metal grating, they could hear the heavy thud of boots running on the main deck. Shouts, orders. Octavia had unleashed the hounds. "We need to cross the primary junction," Juno called out from behind them. "It crosses over the main hangar bay. It is exposed." They reached the junction, a narrow catwalk suspended over the vast open space of the hangar. Below them, rows of fighter craft sat idle. But the catwalk was bathed in searchlights. "Run!" Celine commanded. They sprinted. A laser bolt sizzled past Rowan's ear, scorching the metal railing. "Contact Sector 4 maintenance," a voice shouted from below. "Don't look down," Juno yelled, returning fire with a small stun pistol she had pulled from her belt. More shots rang out. Red plasma bolts tore through the steam. Rowan scrambled, his boots slipping on the slick metal. He tripped, sliding toward the edge. A hand grabbed the back of his collar. Celine yanked him back onto his feet with effortless strength, not breaking her stride. She placed herself between him and the shooters below her coat, flapping as laser fire pinged off the conduit next to her. "Move, you idiot!" she roared. They dove into the hatch on the far side of the catwalk, tumbling into a dark, cool space. Juno slammed the hatch shut and welded it sealed with her laser cutter. "That," Juno panted, leaning against the door, "was too close." They were in a supply storage locker. Crates of rations and spare parts were stacked to the ceiling. It was quiet here, the roar of the engines muffled by thick insulation. Rowan slid down the wall, gasping for air. His lungs burned. "I think I left a lung back there." Celine paced the small room, her eyes glowing in the dark. She checked the door, checked the vents. She was vibrating with adrenaline. "We are trapped," she said. "They will cut through that door in 10 minutes. "Then we have 10 minutes, Rowan said. He reached for a water pouch from a crate and cracked it open, offering it to her. Celine stopped pacing. She looked at the water, then at him. She took it, her fingers brushing his. "Why did you come back?" she asked quietly. Juno could have gotten you to an escape pod. You could have run. I told you, Rowan said, leaning his head back against a crate. I am looking for my brother, and I do not like leaving people behind. Celine sat down on a crate opposite him. The Predator's mask slipped just for a moment. In the dim light, she looked tired. The weight of command of the Wolf Admiral persona seemed to crush her shoulders. I have spent my whole life being the scary thing in the dark, she whispered. The Lupanar are bred for war. We are taught that strength is the only virtue, that to need help is to be weak. She looked at her hands. I hated the slipweave because it took Kale. It took him and gave me no body to mourn. It was a chaotic, uncontrollable error, and I hate errors. You hate not being in control, Rowan said gently. I hate using people, she corrected, her voice fierce. A commander spends lives like currency. I spend my crew to buy victory. I spend their time, their blood. And when I saw you in that buffer room hooked up to the machine, you were just another piece of currency. Octavia was right. I was using you. Rowan looked at her. He saw the guilt that had been eating at her since the beginning. Celine, he said, I am not a pawn. I chose to grab that cable. I chose to stay. I am scared, yeah. I am terrified. I am scared that I am just a tool for the machine, or a tool for Octavia. But I am not scared of you. He leaned forward. Because a user would have left me in the brig. You came back for the badge. You stood in front of the laser fire. You are not a user, Celine. You are a protector. You are just bad at admitting you care. Celine stared at him. The silence stretched heavy and charged. You are impertinent, she said softly. I am honest, Rowan smiled weakly. It is a bad habit. Suddenly the floor beneath them lurched. It wasn't an explosion. It was a vibration deep, resonant, and sickeningly familiar. The slipweave had activated. No, Juno said, checking her datapad. No one authorized a jump. The core is locked out. Octavia! Celine stood up instantly. She is bypassing the safety protocols. She is forcing a jump. The ship shuddered violently. A deafening grinding sound echoed through the hull, as if the ship were tearing itself apart. It is a misjump, Rowan said, clutching his head as the headache returned with a vengeance. A big one. Massive displacement. Suddenly, the air in the supply closet shimmered. Pop. A crate materialized in the center of the room, displacing the air with a thunderous clap. It crashed onto the floor, splintering open. It wasn't Accord supplies. It was a heavy, rusted metal container, painted with a jagged red skull. Assault rifles spilled out, old, dirty, illegal kinetic weapons, and a localized jamming beacon. Pirate tech, Celine hissed, kicking a rifle. The teleporter just spat out a pirate supply drop. Why here? Juno asked. Why inside the ship? Because the target coordinates are bleeding, Rowan said, his eyes unfocused. She is opening a door, but she does not have the key. She does not have me. So the door is opening sideways. His comlink crackled. It was a broadcast on the emergency frequency. This is Dr. Finch. To anyone listening, security has breached the medical bay. I have accessed the biologs. Background noise of shouting and breaking glass filled the transmission. Octavia Sable is using the slipweave to project a carrier signal. She is painting a target on Sanctuary Colony 6. The pirates are not finding the colonies. The colonies are being lit up like beacons by our own ship. She is... A gunshot cut the transmission. Silence. Amara, Celine shouted into her comms. Static. Celine looked at Rowan. Her face was no longer tired. It was stone. It was ice. It was the face of a wolf who had just decided to kill. Colony 6, Celine said. There are 5,000 civilians there, including a Lupanar hatchling nursery. She is selling them out, Rowan said, realizing the horror of it. She is letting the pirates attack to create a crisis so she can step in and save the day with martial law. Celine grabbed one of the pirate rifles from the floor. She checked the chamber with a practiced snap. "We are going to the core," she said. "We are not hiding anymore. We are not escaping." "There is an army between us and the core," Juno warned. "Then we go through them," Celine said. She looked at Rowan. "Can you shut it down?" "If I get to the console," Rowan said, standing up, "I can crash the system, permanently." "Good," Celine said. She hit the door release. "Stay behind me. If anything moves, I kill it. If anything shoots, I kill it twice." They burst out of the maintenance hatch and into the main corridor leading to engineering. It was chaos. The ship was vibrating so hard, the lights were flickering. Crew members were running confused by the unauthorized jump alarm. "Clear the deck!" Celine roared, her voice amplified by pure command presence. Security officers turned, raising their weapons. But they hesitated. This was not the diplomat admiral. This was the werewolf. She held the heavy kinetic rifle like a pistol. "Octavia Sable has betrayed this ship," Celine shouted as she advanced. "Stand down or be treated as mutineers." A shot rang out from a loyalist guard. Celine didn't break stride. She fired a single burst, disarming the man. She moved forward like a juggernaut, knocking guards aside with the butt of her rifle. Juno and Rowan sprinted in her wake. "She is terrifying," Rowan yelled over the noise. "She is magnificent," Juno yelled back, firing her stun pistol at a camera. They reached the doors of the slipweave core. They were sealed. "Juno!" Celine yelled. On it, Juno slapped a sticky charge onto the lock. "Fire in the hole!" Boom! The doors blew inward. They stormed into the bay. The slipweave core was screaming. The violet light had turned a sickly, blinding white. The air was filled with floating debris, crates, tools, dust caught in the gravity distortion. Standing at the control podium, shielded by a wall of elite security guards, was Octavia. She looked up, annoyance flashing across her face. "You are persistent," Octavia shouted over the roar of the machine. "Shut it down, Octavia." Celine leveled her rifle at the director. "You are targeting civilians." "I am creating order," Octavia yelled back. She typed a command into the console. "The raid on Colony 6 has already begun. The pirates have the coordinates. And soon, every system will beg the Accord for protection. My protection." "Not if we close the door," Rowan said. He broke from cover, running toward the manual override station on the far side of the room. "Stop him," Octavia ordered. The guards opened fire. Celine roared a sound that was pure primal fury. She abandoned cover, charging into the center of the room to draw fire. She moved in a blur, dodging plasma bolts, using the floating debris as shields. She was a whirlwind of violence, taking down guard after guard with precise, non-lethal strikes. "Go, Rowan!" she screamed. Rowan slid under a console as sparks rained down on him. He reached the manual override. He yanked the lever. Nothing happened. "It is locked out!" he yelled. "Software override!" "Then use the hardware," Juno shouted, pinning down two guards with suppressive fire. "The interface, use the interface." Rowan looked at the data port. He knew what he had to do. He didn't have a collar this time to act as a lightning rod. He had to be the rod. He grabbed the cable. "Rowan, no!" Celine shouted, turning toward him. "It is the only way!" Rowan yelled. He looked at her across the chaotic room. "Do not let me be a pawn, Celine. Let me be the player." He jammed the cable into the port on his bio-tracker. Contact. The world dissolved. Rowan was no longer in the room. He was in the network. He was a stream of data racing through the void. He saw Colony 6, a blue sphere burning. He saw the pirate ships descending like vultures. He saw the signal beam originating from the Ethelgard. He grabbed the signal. And he pulled. Scream. In the physical world, Rowan arched his back, a scream tearing from his throat. The violet light from the core arced toward him, enveloping him in a cocoon of energy. He is overriding the lock, Octavia shrieked. Kill him! She raised her own pistol, aiming directly at Rowan's exposed head. Celine did not think. She threw her rifle at the nearest guard and launched herself across the gap. She hit Octavia just as the trigger pulled. The shot went wild, shattering a display screen. Celine and Octavia crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Octavia was fast-trained in martial arts, but Celine was a lupinar fighting for her mate. Celine pinned Octavia down, her hand around the woman's throat. Call it off! Celine snarled, her fangs inches from Octavia's face. It is too late, Octavia gasped, smiling through the blood on her teeth. The connection is made. He cannot close it. He can only hold it open. Look at him. Celine looked up. Rowan was floating. Gravity had released him. He was suspended in the center of the energy vortex, his eyes glowing pure white. The slipweave core began to tear open. Not a portal to another ship. Not a portal to a planet. A tear in reality. The sound changed. The mechanical hum died, replaced by voices. Thousands of voices. Echoes. Help us! Where is the light? Coordinates 04. Celine. Celine froze. She heard it. Through the cacophony of the dead, she heard one voice. Distinct. Celine. Kale, she whispered. The rift widened. Shapes began to form in the white light. Ghostly figures trying to push through the membrane of the universe. Octavia laughed a manic, breathless sound. Do you see, Admiral? He is not just a key to the map. He is a key to the archive. He is opening the door to everything we have ever lost. Rowan's body convulsed. He looked down at Celine. His eyes were not seeing her. They were seeing numbers. 497, Rowan spoke, his voice amplified by the room's speakers. The location of the central hub, the pirate main base. He was downloading the truth. He was pulling the location of the enemy directly from the pirate signal. He is tracing them back, Juno yelled, typing frantically at her station. He is reversing the stream. He is finding out where the pirates are coming from. Stop him! Octavia screamed, struggling under Celine's grip. If he broadcasts that, the Accord will destroy them. I need them. Celine looked at Octavia. Then she looked at the rift where the shadow of Kale seemed to be reaching out. And then she looked at Rowan, who was burning up, his life force being consumed to fuel the connection. Peace is not worth a life, Celine said. She tightened her grip on Octavia's throat until the director's eyes rolled back and she went limp. Celine stood up. She walked toward the energy vortex. Rowan, she shouted. Let go, you have the coordinates. Let go. I can't. Rowan's voice was distorted. The door is stuck open. If I let go the echoes, they will spill out. They will consume the ship. The rift pulsed. A massive, shadowy hand pressed against the barrier of reality. The ship groaned. Rowan looked at Celine. A tear of pure light rolled down his cheek. I have to hold it, he whispered. I have to be the doorstop. No. Celine ran forward, but the energy field threw her back. Rowan smiled. It was a sad, broken smile. I found him, Celine, he said. I found Elias, and I found Kale. They are in there. They are waiting. Don't you dare, Celine screamed, pounding on the invisible wall. Don't you dare leave me! Rowan closed his eyes. Flash. A pulse of white light exploded from his body. It swept through the room, through the ship, through the fleet. It carried a message. A single packet of data containing the exact location of every pirate base in the sector. The truth broadcast to every screen in the Accord. But in the slipweave bay, the light faded. The rift sealed shut with a thunderous crack. Rowan fell. He hit the floor with a sickening thud. He didn't move. Celine scrambled over to him. She turned him over. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. But the gold was gone. The white was gone. They were dull, empty brown. He was not breathing. And on the floor next to him, Octavia Sable, stirred coughing, as she regained consciousness. She looked at the data screen flashing with the exposed pirate coordinates. Then, she looked at Rowan's still body, and she smiled. "You won the battle, Admiral," Octavia whispered, her voice raspy. "You exposed the enemy, but you broke your toy." He unlocked the truth, and it cost him his mind. Celine ignored her. She pressed her ear to Rowan's chest. Silence. No heartbeat. No breath. Just the cold, hollow silence of a machine that had been switched off. "Juno," Celine said, her voice trembling. "Get the medic." "Celine," Juno whispered, staring at the bioscanner on her wrist. "There is no signal. He is gone." Celine looked down at the man who had fallen into her bedroom and made her laugh. The man who had refused to be a pawn. She threw her head back and let out a sound that was not human. It was a howl. A long, mournful, terrifying howl that echoed through the veins of the ship, a song of grief for a pack of two. The silence that followed Rowan's collapse was not truly silent. It was a heavy, pressurized quiet, the kind that exists at the bottom of an ocean just before the hull breaches. The slipweave core, having sealed the rift, now emitted a low, throbbing frequency, a subsonic pulse that humans could barely feel. But for the Lupinar crew members, it was a physical agitation. It was a pack call, a distress beacon, inherent to the technology's biological interface, amplified by the trauma the system had just endured. Around the engineering bay, the Lupinar security guards were restless. Their ears flattened against their skulls, lips pulling back to reveal gums in involuntary grimaces. The instinct to run, to hunt, or to tear something apart was overwhelming. Admiral Celine Rauch stood over Rowan's body. She felt the pulse, too. It clawed at the back of her brain, demanding she surrender to the feral panic. But she was an admiral. She was the alpha of this steel territory. "Hold your stations!" Celine's voice was not a shout, but a command pitched perfectly to cut through the frequency. She stood tall, her back to the smoking core, her golden eyes sweeping over her twitching crew. "The first officer who breaks formation answers to me. Is that understood?" The growls in the room subsided into whimpers, then silence. Discipline returned, anchored solely by the weight of her presence. But her eyes never left Rowan. He was breathing now, shallow, ragged gasps that sounded like a bellows with a hole in it. "He is the traitor." Octavia Sable scrambled to her feet, wiping blood from her lip. She pointed a shaking finger at Rowan. "Look at him. He overloaded the core. He broadcast the pirate signal. He is the source of the leak." Octavia's voice was regaining its composure, spinning the narrative with terrifying speed. "I tried to stop him. He attacked me. Admiral Rauch is compromised. She is assisting a saboteur who just sold our coordinates to the enemy." The security guards looked between Octavia and Celine. Doubt was a contagion, and Octavia was an expert carrier. "Arrest them!" Octavia ordered, her voice like a whip. "Arrest the Admiral for treason, and take that thing to the incinerator before it wakes up and opens the door again." "Touch him," Celine said, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried more threat than a scream, "and you will learn exactly how much wolf is left in me." She stepped over Rowan, placing herself between him and the room. She did not draw a weapon. She did not need to. She simply stood there, radiating a lethal promise. Inside Rowan's mind, there was no room for politics. There was only the noise. He was floating in a gray ocean of static. Voices, thousands of them, crashed against him like waves. Coordinates confirmed, "Mommy, the sky is burning." Sector 7, "No survivors, help us." The echoes. He had opened the door, and even though the physical rift was closed, the door in his mind was still ajar. They were trying to pull him in, to dissolve his consciousness into the collective memory of the slipweave. "I am Rowan Hale," he thought, trying to form the words in the void. "I am a technician. I hate synthetic coffee." "You are the key," the voices whispered. I am not a key, Rowan argued with the void. I am a guy who owes Juno 20 credits. I cannot die yet. She will resurrect me just to yell at me. He focused on that small, ridiculous truth. He focused on the memory of the mess hall, the smell of overcooked stew, the way the light hit the scuff table. Then he focused on another memory, a scent, rain and hot iron, golden eyes looking at him with a mixture of annoyance and something else. Lost rookie. The memory of Celine's voice was sharper than the static. It was an anchor. I am not lost, Rowan told the darkness. I am just taking the scenic route. He is seizing, Juno Kess slid across the floor, ignoring the standoff between Celine and the guards. She carried a bulky, jury-rigged device that looked like a toaster welded to a medical scanner. His neural pathways are firing in a loop. The echo is trying to overwrite his hard drive. Fix him, Celine ordered, her eyes still locked on Octavia. I am trying, Juno snapped. She jammed a sensor pad onto Rowan's forehead. I have to pull the data out. He downloaded the pirate network Celine. It is all in there, but it is mixed with the echoes. If I just rip it out, I might lobotomize him. If you do not rip it out, Octavia sneered from across the room, the council will dissect him anyway. Step away, engineer. That is a direct order. I do not take orders from people who shoot doctors, Juno muttered. She looked down at Rowan. Listen to me, you stubborn rookie. If you die on my shift, I swear I will haunt you. I will be the ghost in your machine for eternity. She activated the device. A beam of blue light connected the scanner to Rowan's temple. This was the quantum thread reader, a piece of theoretical tech Juno had built in her spare time to debug the teleporter. Now, it was a lifeline. Rowan arched his back, a silent scream etched on his face. Hold him down, Juno yelled. Celine dropped to her knees, pinning Rowan's shoulders. She could feel the electricity crackling under his skin. Stay with me, Rowan, she whispered into his ear. Do not let go. The doors to the engineering bay slid open. But it wasn't reinforcements for Octavia. It was Dr. Amara Finch. She was leaning heavily on a crutch, her lab coat stained with soot, a bandage wrapped around her head. But her eyes were clear. Behind her stood Milo, the ship's artificial intelligence avatar, a holographic projection that usually stayed on the bridge, now flickering into existence in the middle of the room. Director Sable, Dr. Finch, said, her voice shaking but audible over the hum of the machinery. I believe we need to discuss the definition of treason. Octavia's eyes narrowed. You should be dead, Doctor. The pirates bombed the medical bay. They tried, Finch said. But Milo has excellent firewalls and excellent recording protocols. Milo stepped forward. The hologram was usually polite, almost servile. Today, the avatar looked grim. Accessing internal security logs, Milo announced. The voice was amplified, filling the bay. User Octavia Sable, authorization level Alpha. Command executed bypass safety protocols on Slipweave Core. Target output, omnidirectional broadcast. A holographic screen materialized in the air. It showed a timeline. Every missed jump, every glitch that had plagued the Ethelgard aligned perfectly with a command entered from Octavia's private terminal. You were not just leaking coordinates, Finch said, limping closer. You were steering the ship into the anomalies. You created the instability to mask your transmissions. The security guards lowered their weapons. The evidence was floating in the air, glowing in undeniable blue text. Why? Finch asked. You claim to want peace. How does burning colonies bring peace? Octavia laughed. It was a brittle, jagged sound. She looked around at the crew, who were now looking at her with horror. Peace, Octavia spat the word. The accord is weak. We are stagnant. We sit here and debate trade tariffs with the Lupinar, while the outer systems rot. We needed a threat. A real threat. She gestured to the screen showing the burning colonies. Fear unites people, Doctor. When the pirates burn enough worlds, the Council will stop arguing. They will give me the fleet. They will give me the power to crush the lawless zones. I am not destroying the Accord. I am forging it into something that can actually survive. You are a butcher wrapped in a flag, Celine said, standing up. She walked toward Octavia. This was not a fight. This was a judgment. You want to rule through fear, Celine said, her voice calm. But you forgot one thing, Octavia. Fear makes people run. Loyalty makes them stay. She gestured to the guards. Lieutenant, take the director into custody. The guards hesitated for a fraction of a second, then turned their rifles toward Octavia. You idiots, Octavia hissed. I am the only one who can stop what is coming. She pulled a small detonator from her pocket. The slipweave is still active. Octavia smiled, her thumb hovering over the button. And I just unlocked the back door. She pressed it. The room didn't explode. The reality did. The slipweave core, which had been idling, roared into a catastrophic overdrive. The violet light turned black. She reversed the polarity, Juno screamed, looking at her readings. She is not broadcasting out. She is pulling in. She is turning the core into a magnet for every slipweave signal in the sector. The air in the bay tore open. Not one rift, but a dozen. Space warped. And through the tears, ships began to appear. Not the ghostly echoes of the dead, but real physical ships. Pirate raiders. They were being yanked out of their warp tunnels and deposited directly around the Ethel Guard. The ship's sensors screamed a collision warning. Intruder alert. Hull breach in sectors 4, 5, and 9. Octavia had turned the Ethel Guard into a landing pad for the invasion force she had summoned. If I cannot command the fleet, Octavia whispered, I will burn it. Celine moved. She didn't bother with an arrest. She struck Octavia with the back of her hand, a blow that sent the woman flying across the room to crash into a bulkhead unconscious. Battle stations, Celine roared. Repel boarders, seal the engineering deck. But the chaos was absolute. The ship rocked as boarding pods slammed into the hull. Laser fire erupted in the corridors. And in the center of it all, Rowan Hale sat up. His eyes were wide, the pupils dilated until they were almost black. The quantum thread reader on his head was smoking. Rowan, Juno grabbed his shoulder. Are you with us? Rowan looked at her. Then he looked at Celine. The door is open, Rowan said. His voice was not his own. It was a chorus of himself and the machine. I have to close it. He stood up. He swayed, his body vibrating with the energy he had absorbed. Juno, Rowan said, his voice clarifying, becoming human again. The coordinates, the pirate bases. Did you get them? I have them, Juno said, tapping the data drive. But the system is locked in receive mode. I cannot transmit them to the fleet until the core is shut down. And the core will not shut down, Rowan said, looking at the black light. Because it is feeding on me. It is using my biosignature to keep the channel open. He looked at his hands. They were glowing faintly. I am the wedge in the door, he whispered. Celine was at his side in an instant. She grabbed his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. Do not say it, she warned him. Do not you dare say what you are thinking. Rowan smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. Celine, as long as I am here, the pirates can keep jumping in. I am the beacon. You have to cut the power. We can cut the core manually, Celine argued. Octavia destroyed the manual overrides, Rowan said. The only link left is the biological one, the interface. He pointed to his own chest. You have to erase me, Celine. No, Celine said. The word was a sob. I will not. It is the only way to close the rift, Rowan said. If you do not, the pirates will overrun the ship. They will kill everyone. Juno, Finch, you. He took her hands and placed them on the console, specifically on the command sequence for a biopattern purge. It wipes the active user from the system, Rowan explained. It deletes the connection. It deletes the memories attached to the connection. Celine looked at the console. The purge command was a failsafe. It would sever the link, yes, but it would send a massive neural shock back to the user. It would scour Rowan's mind clean. I will lose you, Celine whispered. You will not know me. But you will be alive, Rowan said, and you will know me. That has to be enough. Explosions rocked the door. The pirates were cutting through. Make the choice, Admiral, Rowan said, his voice firming. Do your duty. Celine looked at him. She looked at the man who had fallen into her life and turned her world upside down. The man who made her laugh. The man she had protected. She saw the love in his eyes and the resolve. He was right. It was the only way. I hate you for this, Celine choked out. I know, Rowan grinned, tears streaming down his face. I am a terrible employee. Celine leaned in. She kissed him. It wasn't a soft kiss. It was desperate, fierce, and tasted of salt and ozone. It was a promise and a goodbye. As she kissed him, her hand moved to the console. She entered her command code. Authorization, Admiral Celine Rauch, Command Purge User. She pulled away, her eyes locked on him. Goodbye, rookie. She hit execute. The world turned white. A scream tore through the fabric of the room, but it didn't come from Rowan. It came from the machine. The slipweave shrieked as its connection was violently severed. The black light collapsed. The rifts slammed shut, shearing through the pirate ships that were halfway through, leaving the wreckage drifting in the void. Rowan arched his back, his eyes rolling back in his head. The neural feedback hit him like a physical blow. Then he fell. He hit the deck and lay still. The hum of the core died. The lights flickered and returned to standard illumination. Silence returned to the engineering bay. Rowan, Juno dropped to her knees beside him. She checked his pulse. Celine stood frozen at the console, her hand still hovering over the button. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't move. He is alive, Juno announced, her voice filled with wonder. Heartbeat is steady, strong. Celine let out a breath that was half sob. She stumbled over to him. Rowan's eyelids fluttered. He groaned, shifting on the hard metal. Rowan, Celine whispered, reaching out to touch his face. Rowan opened his eyes. They were brown, clear, no gold, no white static, just ordinary human brown. He looked at the ceiling. Then he looked at Juno. Then he looked at Celine. He frowned. Ma'am, he said, his voice polite, confused. Admiral Rauch, why am I on the floor? Celine froze. Her hand stopped inches from his cheek. And Rowan looked around the wrecked bay, the unconscious Octavia, the smoke. Did I miss the shift change? My head hurts. I feel like I have been asleep for a week. He looked at Celine with absolute recognition of her rank and absolute zero recognition of their intimacy. There was no warmth, no shared secret, just the nervous respect of a technician facing his commanding officer. I am sorry, Admiral, Rowan stammered, trying to sit up. I must have fainted. I hope I did not cause a problem. Celine stared at him. The pain in her chest was sharper than any blade. He was there, but he was gone. The purge had worked. It had wiped the echo. It had wiped the connection. And it had wiped the last few days of his memory. He didn't remember the raid. He didn't remember the investigation. He didn't remember the kiss. Celine swallowed the lump in her throat. She slowly pulled her hand back, straightening her spine. She was the Admiral again. She had to be. You had an accident, Mr. Hale, Celine said, her voice steady, though her eyes were shining. A surge in the coupling. You saved the ship. I did? Rowan looked surprised. Well, that is good, I guess. Juno looked at Celine, tears in her eyes. She understood. She didn't say a word. "Help him to the infirmary," Celine ordered softly. As Juno helped a confused Rowan to his feet, Octavia groaned from the corner. Two security guards hauled her up. Octavia looked at the scene. The closed rift, the living Rowan, the stoic Celine. "You think you won," Octavia rasped, as the guards dragged her past Celine. "You think the misjump that brought him to you was an accident? A random glitch?" Celine stopped. She didn't look at Octavia. She looked at Rowan's retreating back. "No," Celine said quietly. "I know it was not." Epilogue. 3 days later. The Ethelgard was undergoing repairs at the dock. The pirate fleet had been decimated, their coordinates broadcast to the entire Accord Navy, thanks to the data Juno had saved. Octavia Sable was in a high-security prison, awaiting trial for high treason. Peace was safe, for now. Celine sat in her quarters, the same velvet black room where it had all started. She held a small, scorched badge in her hand. Sanctuary Colony 4. The door chime rang. "Enter," Celine said. Rowan Hale walked in. He was wearing a fresh gray jumpsuit, looking clean and rested. He stood at attention. "Technician Second Class Hale reporting as ordered, Admiral," he said. "At ease, Hale," Celine said. She turned her chair to face him. Rowan relaxed slightly, but he still looked nervous. "Dr. Finch said I am cleared for duty, but she said you had a new assignment for me." "I do," Celine said. She stood up and walked over to him. She studied his face. It was the same face, the same messy hair, but the shadow behind the eyes was gone. He was safe. He was free of the ghosts. "I am promoting you," Celine said. "To my personal technical detail." Rowan blinked. "Your personal detail, Admiral, with all due respect. I am just a guy who fixes conduits. I am clumsy. I drop things." "I know," Celine said. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "I am counting on it." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "I also have something for you. Juno found it in the logs. It is a file on a missing transport. The Horizon's Edge." Rowan's breath hitched. "My brother's ship. We found the crash site coordinates," Celine lied smoothly. The coordinates had come from Rowan's own mind during the connection, but he didn't need to know that. "He is alive, Rowan. He is in a stasis pod in the wreckage. We are sending a recovery team." Rowan stared at her. His eyes filled with tears. "Admiral, I thank you. I do not know what to say." "Say nothing," Celine said. "Just do your job." "Yes, ma'am," Rowan saluted. He turned to leave. "Hale," Celine called out. He stopped at the door. "Yes, Admiral." Celine looked at him. She wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to tell him that she had loved him. She wanted to tell him the truth about the day they met. The plot twist. She remembered the moment the slipweave malfunctioned that first night. She had been on the bridge monitoring the sensor arrays. She had seen the anomaly forming not a random error, but a targeted assassination attempt by Octavia, aimed at venting the engineering deck into space. She had seen Rowan's biosignal in the kill zone. She hadn't just watched. She had manually overridden the teleport coordinates. She had yanked the destination pointer from deep space to Admiral's quarters. She had saved him. She had stolen him from death before they had even met. The smirk that night, the lost rookie line, it wasn't mockery. It was the adrenaline-fueled relief of a woman who had just caught a falling star. She had chosen him from the very first second. But she couldn't tell him that. Not now. He was a subordinate. She was an admiral. And the memory was hers alone to keep. "Don't get lost again, rookie," Celine said softly. Rowan frowned slightly, as if the phrase triggered a distant, unreachable memory. He tilted his head, a ghost of a smile appearing on his face. "I will try my best, Admiral," he said. But with this ship, you never know where you might end up. He walked out. The door slid shut. Celine Rauch turned back to the viewport. The stars were streaking by, infinite and cold. But for the first time in 5 years, the room didn't feel empty. She touched the silver collar on her desk, the one she had retrieved from the wreck of the buffer room. She placed it in a drawer and locked it. The ghosts were gone. The hunt was over. And the wolf had found something better than prey. She had found a reason to keep the door open.